Alrighty, guys, thanks for joining me. This is your host, Tiny Jester. So, we're going to be doing a few tutorial videos for Fantasy Grounds and specifically joining our Dungeons and Dragons campaign. A lot of these will obviously work for any other group you might be joining, but specifically, this will be for any of the players that will be joining our group and playing Dungeons and Dragons. Fantasy Grounds is a great program. It's not as complex or as difficult as people think it is, and there is just a few things to make your life a little bit easier, and that's what we're going to cover in this episode. We'll probably create a couple episodes, one looking at how to use Fantasy Grounds, another episode talking about your characters, and then probably another episode on combat and targeting and untargeting things, which are, from our experience, the hardest things for new players to get a grips on. So I just thought I would cover those in some short tutorial videos. So let's get started. So the first thing you want to do is you want to download the Steam client, STEAM. And if you have Steam already, congratulations. It's a great, wonderful resource for your computer games. If you don't have Steam, download and install Steam on your computer. Once you have it up and running, you'll see this little icon, usually down here in the bottom right-hand corner. Looks like a little gear, a blue circle with a gear. If you hover over it, it'll say Steam, and you'll know it's up and running. Just double-click on that, and you can see you got your library. You'll have access to your games here on your library. If this is your first time using Steam, you won't see anything here, but we're going to get you something right away. So what I want you to do is click up here at the top where it says Store, and what I want you to do is come up to the search bar up here at the top and type in Fantasy Grounds Demo. Demo. And do a search. And you might see a whole list of stuff come up. What you're looking for is the Fantasy Grounds Demo, and maybe I spelled demo wrong. Fantasy Grounds Demo. Oops, demo. Let's see if I can do a better search. There we go. All right, if you're joining ID Jester and his group, you will only need the demo version, which you will see is free. Now, if you're trying to join other players around the world to play Fantasy Grounds, depending on whether or not the host has the unlimited ultimate license, you may need to purchase your own. But if you're joining ID Jester and his group, I do own the ultimate license, which allows me to have as many players join me for free, and you won't need to pay anything. Basically, I'm paying for all the licenses for everyone. So, if you enjoy Fantasy Grounds, there's nothing wrong with supporting the designer and developer and buying it. But, in this case, you do not need to. So you're going to download Fantasy Grounds Demo and just click on it and basically download it and get it installed on Steam. When it's up and running, when you go to your library, you will see something that says Fantasy Grounds Demo on it. And then you are ready to go. All you have to do is double click on it. Now, I can't install the demo because I have the full version of Fantasy Grounds. So I'm going to have to, I won't be able to show you that, but it'll say Fantasy Grounds Demo here. And you can see the programs that are in white are the ones that are installed. If it's grayed and faded out like this, these are ones that are not installed. So if you have Fantasy Grounds Demo here and it's grayed out like that, all you have to do is double click on it, right? Double click, and let me see if I can find a game here. It should start installing. If I'm going to find something that's maybe not very big. Hopefully, I'm not really trying to install anything. So if I double click, it should bring up a menu saying, do you want to install Fantasy Grounds Demo? And you say next, 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 and it should install it. And then once you have it installed, your Fantasy Grounds should be nice and bright and white like that. All right. So that's basics of getting Fantasy Grounds installed on your computer. Steam should auto download it. There should be no cost. It should be very, very simple for you. All right. So you got your Fantasy Grounds installed, and you double click on it, and what should come up is this little menu here. This button down here that says check for updates, it might be red. If that means you have an update, just click it and let it do its thing. It should automatically do it. It's going to go to the Fantasy Ground server, see if if there's any new releases or any new version of the program, and then it should automatically install it. You shouldn't have to do anything. Just sit there and let it run and show. All right, once you've got all your updates ready to go and you don't have any red button there anymore, all you have to do is click on Join Game. Now, you may or may not see all of these buttons here. Again, I've got the Ultimate Edition, so the Demo Edition probably does not have Load Campaign and Create Campaign because it's not one of the features it gives you to be able to do with the free version. So you might not see those buttons. You might not see some of the other buttons that we see from the full release, but you will see a button that says Join Game. So what I want you to do is click on Join Game, and what you're going to do is just come up here and you're going to put in your username, which can either be your personal name, your character's name, just just to separate who's joining the game. The only issue is, say you have two players named John that are coming. Well, if both players put in John, it can be a little bit confusing. So I would probably try to join with your character's name, right, or some similarity to your character's name, and then you're going to get your host server IP address. So whoever's hosting the game will send this to you, and you'll just put that in. It'll probably be an IP address, and once you have that, you're just going to click on the Start button. Depending on whether or not they use a password, you might need to put a password in, and then you just click on the Start button. And if all goes as planned, this screen should take about 5 seconds, and then it should go away and start loading your game, just like that. Just like that. To be able to be up and running in Fantasy Grounds is not very hard. It's actually quite simple, but it can throw people off that have never done it, and so that's why I'm kind of going over things for you guys. So you'll see, again, your screen might look slightly different than mine. You might not have a logo in the middle of yours because you are using the demo version, or it might say demo. Since I don't actually own the demo version, it's hard for me to say exactly what you'll see. What you should see is the campaign setup. Fantasy Grounds, just keep this in mind. Any window that pops up in the top right-hand corner should be an X. And if you click on that X, it should go away. And you should see the character selection button. If for some reason the character selection button doesn't come up, all you have to do is go over to the right-hand side where it says PCs and click on it, and you can bring up the character selection yourself. So if you close it out accidentally or whatever, all you have to do is just come over to where it says PCs, and it should list all the available PCs. Now, you might not see anybody in there if your DM hasn't assigned any character to you, or if all the characters have already been assigned to people. So you might need to just let your DM know, oh, I don't see any characters. The character selection is blank. If you do see characters, that's a good thing, and you're going to select your character from the list. And once you do this the first time, Halesfar Blackhand, all right, once you do that the first time, you shouldn't have to do that anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, one of the things about Fantasy Grounds is left clicking, as we talked about, does certain things, and then right clicking does other things. So if you're trying to do something and you can't do it with the left click, always try and do the right click. So on the right click on the desktop, and we're going to go up here to where it says exit program, and it's going to give us two options, return to the launcher or exit the program. We're actually going to click on return to launcher, which is our main screen here. And when I click on join game again, now that I've actually connected to this game with my character name, you'll notice it'll start populating a list here with your connection history. All I have to do is actually click on that. It'll put that information up here for you automatically. And then all I have to do is click on start. Enter the password again if you guys are using a password. If not, it won't ask you for that, and it should just go on without. So after, like I said, about 5 to 10 seconds, it should just start loading Fantasy Grounds. And pretty soon, you should be connected to the game. All right. So you can see that now that we've connected the second time, you can see that this one's actually been owned, and it's owned by you because you clicked on this before. So this character is owned by you. So no other player can actually have access to this unless the DM changes the ownership of it, which he has the right. Let's say if I miss a session and one of the other players or a new player has to play my character because I can't make the session, he can open it up again and let other people use it. But in most cases, your character will be just assigned to you and you will own. So there we are. So we've connected and we have access to our character. So let's talk a little bit about manipulating and managing Fantasy Grounds. Again, what I could do is right click the desktop and go to Restore Window. So what this does is it takes it in window mode and or out of window mode. So if your Fantasy Ground goes to a window, just right click and click on Maximize Window, and you can switch between them if you need to. Right click, there you go. Fantasy Grounds always uses the bottom right-hand corner or the bottom edge to resize windows. So if I come down here to the bottom edge, you can see I can resize my window. If I wanted to use a window mode for whatever reason, or if I'm going to move around or resize any of the windows that actually come in the game. So what I'm going to do is maximize this again. All right, so over here on the left-hand side, up at the top, you'll see all the different characters, the player characters up here at the top. Right now, all we see is just the character that I own. And then this is the text and the dice rolling window. And then down here in the bottom is your modifier and dice. Over on the right-hand side are access to all the different tabs that you might need access to, and some other miscellaneous tabs up here at the top. If you click on the little gear icon, here's the options. So your DM might tell you, oh, go in there and change this option or something. You know where this is now. So you can say, oh, okay, I'll change that to, instead of show effects, I'll change it to something else. Now, most of this stuff your DM is set up for you ahead of time, and you won't need to really change anything. The only thing you'll need to change are these options up here at the top, where if somebody whispers to you, it'll actually ring. Well, if you want to turn that off, you can turn that on or off. You can enter dice manually, or you can do it automatically, and you can have the target remove it on a hit, and you can auto center on the map. And I would just leave everything as the default, but there's where your options are in case you need to change something. The other options are color. If I click on the colors button, it brings up a colors window, and what this does is allows you to change the color of your dice. So if I click on the red, you will notice the color of my dice change. Or if I want to make it more purpley, or more black, or more white, or whatever I want to do, lighter or darker shades of blue and red and greens, depending on what you're doing, you will see the color of your dice. And it's good to have colored dice different than all the other players out there. Just makes things a little bit easier for the DM when dice are flying around everywhere. It can kind of help the DM associate, blue with this person and purple with this person and black with this person and green with this person. Kind of just to help the DM, choose a color and just stick with it. Your DM will get used to your color. So when the initiative comes up and I see blue, green, and purple being rolled, but I didn't see the black dice being rolled, I can say, hey, buddy, you forgot to roll for initiative. Oh, yeah. So it helps the DM and the other players if you all just have different colored dice. It adds a little, your own special flair to the game anyways. Alrighty, so let's see. Any window that you actually open in Fantasy Grounds will remember where you opened it. So, and it'll keep track of that information, you can actually use that to your advantage. So if I was to click on my character over here and bring up my character sheet, and I resize it, right, to the size that I like, and I bring it over here to the bottom right-hand corner, and I close out of it, the next time I click on my character sheet, look, it remembered exact size, it remembered the exact location of where it was. So find your desktop is your desktop. It doesn't have anything to do with the Dungeon Master or any of the other players can't see what you're doing on your desktop. So your desktop is for you. So you manage it however you want to. If you want to have it over here by the other buttons, if you want to have it closer over here to the dice tray, whatever floats your boat, just figure out what's best for you and just use that. The other thing I would recommend you do is minimize your dice tray because you don't really need all of that room unless you're doing a heavy text game where there's a lot of text that's going to be coming in the dice window. But you notice when I try to drag it or resize it or anything, nothing actually happens. So what I have to do is right click on it and I have to unlock it. And now you can see I can do the same thing. I might want to have my dice tray over here. And I can resize it. Now remember, resizing always, you can't, like a normal Windows program, you can normally resize things from the top. And in Fantasy Grounds, it's just not doable. Always use the bottom edge to resize things, right? So you find that maybe a good size for everything. Maybe you want this up here. Maybe your character sheet underneath it. Maybe resize this a little bit more. Whatever. Again, your desktop is for you and you alone. And whatever floats your boat. The problem is you cannot reassign the position of your dice. They will always come back to over here. So if I say to the program, arrange my dice, you will see they will pop back over there in that location. So I would tend to keep my dice tray very close to the dice, and I would use, my character sheets kind of over as best as I can. And then when I find a good position, again, I want to lock this so this window doesn't roll around. Now, what do we need all this other space for? Well, you're going to be clicking on lots of other tabs, and you're going to be looking at other images and all kinds of different things. And then that gives you full access to all that information over here. Again, it's your desktop. You do whatever you want. I'm just giving you some suggestions. At some point, the Dungeon Master is probably going to send you an image of a map because obviously part of Dungeons & Dragons is mapping things out and having access to that. And what will end up happening is you will see a window that will start popping in on your screen here, and there it comes really quickly. Well, normally it doesn't happen quite that quickly because I'm running everything locally. It does happen really fast. Depending on the size and the quality of the image, it might take up to 3 or 4 or 5 minutes to have access to that window. It might show up as just blank nothingness, but here's how you manage. Again, you manage things. Up at the top, you're just going to click and drag this around as best you want. And normally you're going to be playing with a map. I know as me as a Dungeon Master, I like to send my players lots of images and maps and stuff. So I would have the campaign maps, maybe your regular campaign map up here, and then your current map maybe over here. Again, use the bottom right-hand corner to resize things. Okay, always use that to resize things. All right. And then you'll see this little golden diamond down here because at this point it looks like, hey, I don't have anything. What you have to use is left click on this diamond and then you just drag your mouse around. You can see I'm actually moving things. It doesn't look like I'm moving anything unless there's something on the screen, but as long as I hold my left mouse button down, I can drag it out to the right. It takes the image to the right. If I drag it to the left, it takes it to the left. I take it to the bottom, I can take it to the top. So it's actually doing things it might not look at. So before you say, hey, DM, I don't see anything, take a second and just see and just move the image around. Oh, yeah, hang on. I do see something. It's down here at the bottom. Okay. And your DM might say, scroll to the bottom, you should see your character. If you don't see your character down here, let the DM know. Again, manipulating the map is probably one of the most difficult things because you can just see, oh, okay, I just want to squeeze this map a little bit. But it doesn't actually take the image and squeeze it, right? So what I have to use is the golden diamond again and kind of scroll down. Then what I can do is I can actually zoom in and out of it by using the scroll button on my mouse, and resize it to whatever size you think fits for your desktop. So I would make it kind of big, and I'm ready to go. Um, we'll talk about targeting enemies and manipulating combat and moving characters and such in another episode. That's not really what this is. This is kind of the grand overview of how to use Fantasy Grounds. If for some reason you accidentally click out of it, oh damn, oh man, what's going on? I'm sorry, I lost it. Hello, DM, can you send that image again? You're gonna have to request it again. DM should send you the image again. So if the DM does send you a map that you're going to be using, your campaign map or whatever, you want to try to have that available. And again, it will remember the size and everything that you've used for your sizing. And again, scrolling, map manipulation is it takes a little bit of getting used to because, I want to hold my left mouse button down and just scroll this around. And I want to zoom in. It doesn't like zoom in where I need it to be. And it's not like a normal Windows program where you can left click and drag the image up. It doesn't work that way. So just always use the golden diamond and it should be able to manage it. It will take you a little bit to get used to, but after an episode or two, a session or two with your group, you should be able to handle it pretty well. There will be other buttons up here. There's a notes tab where you can keep notes for yourself on your character or on the campaign. What you want to do is I'm going to create a note called people because that's always important, right? Um, And so what I want to do is edit the list, and I want to hit the green button that says add an item, right? And it's called new note, and we're going to call this, town, we'll call this, mm, uh, we'll call this leaders. So, if you come to a new town and you're trying to find out who's in charge, who's the king of the kingdom and what all his disciples are, right? So now I can put the text in here. So it's king, and his name is going to be, King George the Third, right? And then the queen. Whoop. Okay, leaders. Hang on. There we go. Click back down here. Queen. All right, we'll call her Lady La. There we go. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Blah, blah, blah. This is where I can keep track of all my people. Then I can actually lock this, which means nobody can click on it and make changes to it, right? Nobody. And I can close this window. And hopefully, when I bring back up my notes, it's because it's doing a search for people. We don't want to do a search for people. There we go. And there's leaders, right? And I can click on it, and there it does. Again, right? If I put this up over here and I close it out, next time I open it up, we'll get right back there. So again, you can use this to your advantage. Organize. Keep your desktop organized. There's nothing worse than, hang on a second, I got a window behind a window behind a window, right? So as players, you can keep track. You can keep notes on your campaigns, important events, important people. You can even, we're going to, and this goes with all of Fantasy Ground windows. You click on the Notes tab. If you want a new If you don't see the green button, what you want to do is you want to click on the little edit button. So usually the dashes in Fantasy Grounds mean edit. I want to change something. So if you don't see the green button, I want to edit. Oh, there we go. And then green buttons are usually add, right? So we're going to add an item. And this might be, campaign note is going to be called, we'll just call this CAMPAI campaign notes, right? And again, then you can blah, 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 put all your information in here, as much in detail as you want. Make sure you can lock it. Again, locking things means you can't change them or edit them. It doesn't mean you can't change it later on. All you have to do is unlock it, right? But it prevents other people from changing it, or editing it. There's nothing worse than getting in there and accidentally doing something and all your notes goes away and then there's no way to recover it, right? So you don't want to actually have that happen. So there's our leaders, here's our campaign notes. We have our notes. So when the DM says, oh, you got to pick up a note and it's signed, just the letter M at the bottom, oh wait, hang on a second, guys. We go back to our notes here. We go back to our leaders and we look at. Well, we know that there's so and so his name starts with an M, and so his last name is an M, and so you can if you take good notes, it obviously helps. Well, that's what the note tab is for. Images and maps. If the DM has assigned those to you, you may or may not see things in here, but he can assign you like the different maps, right? Here's one that we had used for our campaign here that was given access to all the different players, and so this way you can always bring up those maps and notes and stuff if you accidentally close them. Or let's see, here's the Sword Coast. Here's the Sword Coast again. Wait a minute, what am I doing here? We use the golden diamond to scroll up and down. So this is where the players were. This is like the party token, right? So they can see on the map where they were. So the DM might say, okay, bring up your campaign map. You obviously click on images and maps to get access to that. And I don't think, let's see, this one might actually be the map that we actually, let me look at no, it's called the Red Brand Hideout. This one right here. So if I close this out, right, I can ask the DM, oh, what's the name of that map? And he would tell me, oh, it's a Red Brain Hideout. I can actually click on that, and there we go. And you can see there is the map. So he doesn't need to resend it if you accidentally delete it or close out of it, right? So you can always go to your map and images for that. Story, again, this, I don't think this is really for the players. This is more about how the DM is designing the story that's going through NPCs. You might have access to NPC character sheets. If you're doing a battle with a certain character or certain NPC, you can always click on them and look at all their information. If you're, let's say the players are assigned in protecting this person, it's always good for them to see their character sheets so they know what they can or cannot do. Okay, looks like he's pretty weak. He's only got 4 hit points and armor class of 10 and blah blah blah. So that's what your NPC tab is for. Items, DM might assign items to different players, but you're going to do that up in the top right hand corner up there at the very top is the character sheets. You'll see once other players join, right, you'll see all the different players here. The DM will have them all listed. You can actually assign different marching orders, so you can tell the DM, well, this character is going to move up in this way. Right now it's locked on the Dungeon Master screen, but you might see rewards here, and you might say, oh, I'm going to claim that reward if it's something you want. So that's where you do that. Is the up here at the top right hand corner. Thank you. Is your party sheet. A big important one is the combat tracker, right? The combat tracker. You may or may not see anything but the characters on here, the other player characters. Uh, and depending on when you all of a sudden see enemies, it's good to know. So combat tracker is another window you're going to have up. So another space that you need to decide where this should go, because you need to know when you're, if this was the initiative order, I hadn't rolled initiative, but let's say I had only rolled a 5 on initiative. I can see when my character goes in the initiative order, so I'm going to go last. So, but as the rounds progress, I'm going to see, okay, eventually it's going to get down to this guy, and then I'm going to go, okay, I know I'm next. I got to be ready to go. I got to be ready to go, because when you play online, one of the things that slows down Dungeons and Dragons a lot is combat, right? And manipulating combat and the dice and the rolls and all that takes a long time. So, having your combat tracker available and knowing what's going on, when it's going to be your turn, and being ready to go when it's your turn, obviously is going to speed things along. So, combat tracker, really good thing, and you're going to find that up here in the top right hand corner. There's also a calendar if you're going to set up when your different events and stuff. And then modifiers, if you have a certain modifier that's happening to you. For example, if you're in cover, right, you can click on the cover button, and when you do your attack. So, or when somebody is attacking you, if for example you hit somebody opportunity attack, you can click on that. That's what that button does. And the last button here is your different effects. So if you're blinded, invisible, charmed, paralyzed, whatever, and you always keep forgetting all of that, right? You can bring this up and you can say, oh, shoot, I am blinded, right? Unconscious, right? You can, boom. You can see it here in the chat. Oops. And I also have that in the chat. So there you go. That's kind of manipulating Fantasy Grounds. There's not a lot to it, really, to be honest. You want to have a couple windows open. Like I said, the combat tracker. You probably don't need that up when you're doing, traveling throughout the world and stuff like that. But as soon as combat comes, it's always good to have the combat tracker available and ready to go. You will see this change when the Dungeon Master says, okay, we're going to go to the we're going to start and next round. All right, and I gotta do this on the other screen, but you will see. All right, you see it's now the glass staff. You can see whatever's bold is the turn, right? So you can see, it's Eldrick Daw's turn. Oh, and then it's Dog the Sidious. Now it's the Nordic. Oh, now it's my turn. House Forward Blackhand. Here we go. My turn. I'm ready to act. I'm ready to go. And then when my turn's done, it'll go back to the top of the initiative order. So it's a good way to keep track. And then you got your main screen, possibly here again. I don't know if you want to just, keep your character sheet closed and keep your combat tracker over there. Maybe bring up your character sheet and keep it over here. As a dungeon master, I usually have 5 or 6 or 7 windows open at a time, so it's hard for me to tell you the best position for players. But just figure out what works best for you. All right, so now that's kind of the overview of Fantasy Grounds. There's not a lot to it, really, to be honest. There's a token thing here. Again, that's not really for players other than to get the token for your character, which the DM will probably assign for you. And their library, which, will allow you to down different, if the DM is sharing like the player's handbook or whatever with you, you will see it listed here. And then you have access to the information in the player's handbook. Let's see if I can actually do that? Library and and let's see here. No, 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 no. I don't want to do that. All right, so if I go to the player's handbook here, boom, 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 it should show that information up here in just a second. Here it is. So, all right, I've got to unload it and then I got to load it back in. There we go. So now when I go to the library, modules, it will see I can now load in the Dungeons and Dragons player's handbook. And it'll load up for me. You can see the little book opens up. So now if, there it is, and so now I can actually click on it and I can go, I want to check what my class feature is. I'm a cleric, and I want to see how many spells I have at second level. And you can see, let's see here, I have, spells at second level. Oh, I have 3 first level spells. So, you can see the DM will have let you have access to lots of different things. The other thing is you can always get this. If you're looking up a certain spell, I'm looking up a second level spell here, hold person, and you're not and you want to just let the DM know what this does. You can take the little dragon head, right? You can take the little dragon head and just kick it down here into the thing. Yeah, okay. We can't do it from the actual book. That's fine. But we could do it from our character here who has access to spells. If I wanted to say, here is the spell. Boom. Guiding Bolt. And then the DM can click on that. There we go. And it'll give all the information. So that's what the library does. That the Dungeon Master or your group shares the books. Obviously, probably just the player's books. He's not going to share the master manual or anything like that with you. All right, and then you have different tabs up here in the side. One is for the Dungeon Master, one's for the player. You can also have the Create the PC, which is very good when you go to upgrade your characters or create characters. You want to click on the Create PC because you'll get different tabs here. And then there's the All button, which will give you access to all of these. Again, I'm not sure in the demo version if you have all of these buttons, so just keep that in mind. You may or might not have access to all that stuff. I know that my players, I think, had the player one, and I think they had the Create PC. I don't think they had the All button. I'm not sure, but I don't want to steer you guys in the wrong direction. So I'm not 100% sure. But that's it. You want to manage your oops. Now I've changed that and I want it back to player. There we go. So if I click on images, one other thing I'm going to show you. Oops. Let's go to images. Click on maps here. Oh, right. Because I just gave you access to all that other stuff from the player's handbook. You can see when we go to images and maps now, instead of having just a few things, there is a ton of stuff. But if I go down to I want to go back to the red guard. Where's red guard? Oh, it's page 2. Red guard. Red guard. Where is it? There it is. All right, so back to our original screen here. All right. So if I'm ready to close out, if I right click, you notice I get different options. So to exit out, you have to be at your desktop, right, to get the X, to exit the program. If I right click here, it gives me different options, which we're going to talk about in an upcoming episode. So hopefully this helps everyone just get a little bit more familiar with the concepts of Fantasy Grounds. It's not very hard. It's pretty intuitive. It does take a little bit of practice to manage things, but you can see it's not very complex. There's only a few buttons, but we're going to talk about creating a character, or not creating a character, managing a character, and how to set up, how to use your character in the next episode. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.